Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sasha Star, and it's a Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. And we have a guest today, Professor Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be
Great,
here.
as always. And Ivan Kucherenko from Kiev, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Hello,
Great
everyone.
to have you, Ivan. So tell us what situation in Kiev today, what people think, what people talk, what's happening.
Situation the same. We have almost every day the same drone attacks, missile attacks, and people are waiting for really good news. Today's one of the good news was that another Russian fighter jet was down on the eastern battlefield. So we lack of such good news, but it's quite clear why we don't have such a lot of them, because we lack support currently, and probably no possibilities to give us good news every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the better times are coming. I'm pretty sure. And Jonathan, how
Yeah,
do you tell us how
yeah,
things are?
we're seeing incremental indicators in all sectors that if you look at them individually, they don't say much, but when you take them all collectively, such as all of the bilateral agreements that are emerging between various NATO members and Ukraine, and you add to that the fact of Ukraine's increasing domestic military production. They're building up the Ukrainians are successfully building up their own capability for military production as well as defense. And when you add to that the qualitative factors, the fact that the Russians have been unable to disrupt Ukraine's use of Elon Musk's Starlink satellites, making use of their space capability, and add to that the steady string of victories, tactical victories in the Black Sea, by Ukraine successfully denying Russia the ability to operate in the Black Sea. Add to that, you add all these little incremental qualitative and as well as the tactical victories, the tactical superiority that Ukraine is displaying over the Russians and their ability to maintain an offensive. Yeah, there was this one report recently that says, I believe it was by the Institute for the Study of War, that says that Russia is replacing its tanks, its destroyed tanks, at the rate of 100 a month. Well, guess what? They're losing tanks a lot more than 100 a month. And so you're going to have this. What that tells me is that the Russians are going to be facing a steady qualitative decline in their armor that they're able to employ, both numerical as well as quantitative. So that bodes well for the Ukrainians. And then you take the increasing effectiveness and use by the Ukrainians of drones, manufacturing their own drones. I mean, do I understand correctly that even Ukrainian teenagers are involved in the manufacture and piloting of drones? I mean, this is because for Ukrainian teenagers, this is the new thing. This is the new cool thing to do.
It's like a video game for them.
To them, yes. To them, it's like a video game. And it's the payoff is, oh, we kill Russians. Great.
Jonathan, just to illustrate your point about tanks, I just looked at Ukrainian Pravda. They liquidated yesterday in one day 10 tanks. So that's even better ratio than 100 months.
And the Ukrainians are making the most of necessity. They are making the greatest virtue out of necessity, having to temporarily go on the defensive, the strategic defensive, in order to continue inflicting superior casualties on the Russian forces. And as I have mentioned numerous times now on this program, in my opinion, the Ukrainians are simply waiting and keeping their cards concealed. Their cards concealed. The timing and the nature of decisive operational counterstroke that will sever the control of Crimea from reinforcement by the Russians. And once that happens, that will be a decisive turning point in the conflict. Then Ukraine will be able to shift its forces to occupy Crimea, recover it. That will be an unmistakable political and military defeat for Russia.
Absolutely.
And that is something won't be able to hide or explain it away. And so then this will give the Ukraine's forces the opportunity to regroup and reposition their forces to, once Crimea is safely in their hands, to be able to safely reinforce the eastern portion of the front and stop the Russian offensive altogether. And that will set the stage once the Ukrainians gain air superiority with the acquisition and integration of the F-16s and other forces from NATO members. This will increase Ukraine's qualitative superiority over the Russian invader. And we'll be able to finally, I'll go, if you want to say I'm going out on a limb, okay, I will say that a decisive operational victory for Ukraine over Russia is quite possible this calendar year. Not the,
Yes.
I'm going to defy the narrative of the majority of Western analysts who say, oh, this conflict is going to grind on for years. No, the opportunity is there for the Ukrainians to take their destiny into their own hands and defeat Russia operationally and force Russia to accept an armistice, which basically takes them back to pre-1991 borders.
Don't forget also that there is, in about 2 months, 27th of March, there is election in Russia. And although it's obvious that Putin will remain president, so on, but believe me, I'm watching the Russian media, and there are more and more voices that what's happening with the war. We lost 330,000 plus, which is an enormous number. It's almost cosmic proportion. If you believe that in Afghanistan, Russians, Soviet Union lost 15,000 in 10 years, and here 33,000 plus in less than 2 years, this is insane number. So what we got so many people killed. We got Sweden and Finland, they are members of NATO. And what else we've got as a result of this war? Why? Please account, Mr. Putin. Let us know. What did we get as a result?
What's the big benefit we got for starting a war with Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, Ivan, you have a video, I believe, for today. Maybe you should try to watch it.
Yeah, let's play it.
Okay, excellent.
And to negotiate in order to obtain the best conditions possible. Hitler will not insist on outrageous terms. He will know his own weaknesses. He will be reasonable.
When will the lesson be learned? When will the lesson be learned? How many more dictators must be wooed, appeased, good God, given immense privileges, before we learn? You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!
I'd say that makes the point.
Loud and clear. Yep.
Yeah. Whew.
The situation
Churchill
is the same.
Churchill did have a way with words.
Yeah. What he said and how he said it's it's a fantastic, really, a little video. And Ukraine is in a similar situation. It has no other way to do something against Russia except what they are doing now. That's the only way. There is no discussion. Maybe we should try this, or maybe let's do this, or maybe that way is better than the others. No, that there is only one way. There is no, unfortunately, no power in the world today that can guarantee any peace if it would be achievable. Even if it would be achievable with Russia, nobody can guarantee. Unfortunately, U.S. continues to display its weakness, especially look at what's happened in the Middle East, is when 3 servicemen and about almost 40 were wounded, and some of them are quite seriously. And if you, Jonathan, if you combine all the U.S. forces in the Middle East, from countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Arab Emirates, and many, many all these Arab countries. I'm talking about only Arab countries. The total force, I think, exceeds 60,000 well-armed people. And I can't believe that 60,000 well-armed U.S. servicemen cannot at least protect themselves, never mind to strike back at these culprits. What do you think? What's
Well,
happening?
that situation, Sasha, calls to mind the saying, one saying by certain person said that an army of rabbits led by a lion is more powerful than an army of lions led by a rabbit.
Yeah, that's the case. Absolutely. Very, very frustrating. And especially what's on last week, Pentagon said that it cannot service weapons that it sent to Ukraine and maintain them because, as I said, Pentagon has no money. What a what a great message to U.S. enemies such as Russia, Iran, China, and so on. Pentagon has no money. Okay, that's the end of story. If you have no money, you are nobody. You cannot do anything. It's just incredible. I'm surprised how they could make such a message loud and clear available to all its enemies around the world. I just can't believe it. Is ever happened something like this?
Unless we're playing possum on a scale I find difficult to believe, we're just playing dead. I'm not sure how to interpret this situation.
Yeah, it's not a pretty picture. So it looks like European countries have money, means, weapons, and thank God they delivered it to Ukraine, and they're now taking all this very seriously. And they understand that with US or without US, the war is still there, and it's threatening all European countries, not just Ukraine, not even Baltic republics or Poland. It's threatening now all European countries, and they have to be able to defend themselves. There were a lot of talk in previous years, I remember, about the European Union alliance, like to have its own army and stop to depend on the United States, in at least in European affairs. And I think this is where it's all going. Jonathan, do you see it that way?
I still have
that.
The timing of it. I don't believe that move by the European Union is going to occur this year. Again, the pivotal point, whether you say it's positive or negative, the pivotal point is going to be the U.S. election this year. And do not presume that simply because do not presume that if former President Trump is elected again, that this is automatically going to be a positive development for Russia, or a negative development for Ukraine, or a negative development for NATO, or a positive development for NATO, because former President Trump does have a reputation, if nothing else, is for being unpredictable. And that very unpredictability, paradoxically, oddly enough, enhances deterrence. It enhances the state of uncertainty that is likely to exist in the minds of our principal adversaries. So long as our enemies may think that they can read former President Trump accurately or candidate Trump accurately, they would be wrong. I would contend to you he is not that predictable.
Jonathan, I agree with you on that, but with the latest news, here's a judgment for $83.5 million against this Carroll, Carroll, and upcoming. I'm even scared to tell you the number, but this is a New York real estate deal. I heard one program yesterday, and they evaluate the coming judgment for $500 to $600 million. Now, remember, he can appeal, but before appeal, he has to put all the amount or bond that covers all the amount for every 83,500 in one case and 500-600 million in New York case. The analysis is that there is no bond company in the United States will provide that bond. Trump doesn't have cash of $500,000 or so, $500 million or so. So he may forget about all these criminal cases against him. He may not withstand even civil cases because of the enormity of the judgment against him. So remains to be seen, actually, and I think Haley is getting more and more ground on him, especially with all the latest news development. I think it could be that Trump will not even be able to continue his campaign, although I could be wrong, and I'm not insisting that I'm right. But from what I hear and what are the analyses available at this time, we'll have to see to it. Not praising Biden.
I agree with you to the extent we'll just have to wait and see, because I'm not going to say calculate it. Try to calculate it at this point for certain anyway. that would be like trying to calculate Axis chances of victory in World War II in North Africa, and just as Rommel was coming up to the line in the El Alamein line. To the Allies, it looked like, oh my God, the Axis is about to overrun Alexandria and take over the Middle East. And little did they know that the Axis was just about out of gas and out of forces. They had overextended themselves. We did not know that at the time. We did not know that until after the fact. So trying to predict political developments at this point as to what's going to happen, wait and see. If you don't like the political situation in the United States, wait 10 minutes.
I read very interesting several years ago. I read a book. It's Alternative History, one of those books, and they analyzed Second World War with only two changes, real changes that could have happened easily. One was in Ukraine near Zhytomyr. There was a German's
bunker.
The German airplane with two people, the pilot and Hitler. And it was going somewhere, and it was a crash in which Hitler was absolutely untouchable. There was no single injury, and the pilot was severely injured and had to spend several months in the hospital. He survived, but so the one is what would happen if it would be vice versa. So the pilot would be unscratched and Hitler would have wounds and would spend several months in a hospital. So what would be the result of it? It was about August 1941. So as a result, Guderian would go straight to Moscow. They would not go to Kiev or to Leningrad, or so he would go straight to Moscow and he would take Moscow. Well before the New Year, he would take Moscow around November for sure, before this cold weather strike and so on. And the second, if Germans would take care and took over Malta. If they would took over Malta, they would be victorious in Africa, and they would defeat British in Africa and go all the way to Azerbaijan's oil properties. So these are not, it's alternative history. And
those are alternative histories.
The end of the book was that in 1945, Japan would attack Los Angeles and so on and on and on. But in 1946, the war would end the way it ended. Nothing would change. It would be just longer, more people would be killed, and so on, but the result would be still the same. So it's very interesting. But Germans could take over Malta. They had enough power.
After Crete, the problem was that after the Germans had made their airborne assault on Crete, and they took it, but at heavy casualties to Hitler's airborne arm. And you said that Little Hart commented that the Germans Hitler sprained his wrist, in effect, when he took Crete in a costly assault. But he was unwilling, apparently, to further risk his airborne arm, what was left of his airborne forces at that point, in another assault on Malta. It might have been a Pyrrhic victory. He could have. Let's assume, be a little, shall we say, optimistic on the German side. If they had taken Malta, yes, it would have relieved the supply pressure on North African forces. Rommel would have been fully supplied. They would have been able to get reinforcements and be able to supply Hitler's the Africa Corps and be able to sustain operations, and theoretically then be able to take the Middle East and seal off the Red Sea, the Suez Canal. But you still would have had, although it might have prolonged the effort, you still would have had the problem of they would have had to couple that with victorious operations by the U-boats and other land-based air forces in Norway to be able to successfully cut off Lend-Lease support to Russia. So you have other variables there that are going on at this time. Yes, while it is possible, yes, they say that hindsight is 2020. So you can see things perfectly clearly in hindsight. Unfortunately, not right now in Ukraine. We are in the moment. We are in the moment. We are trying to look forward. We are trying to use various historical precedents and standards to say, okay, what does this look like? And not too many people are looking at it in the light of previous historical experience. If you look at previous historical experience of the Ukrainians in armed combat, the Ukrainians have acquitted themselves rather well with far less resources against occupying Soviet forces immediately after World War II from 1945, and it wasn't fully suppressed apparently until 1954. And they were doing that with lots fewer resources. So now the Ukrainians are demonstrating, given reasonably more equal resources, arguably superior in qualitative terms to the Russians, and they're getting the necessary numbers, they're getting the necessary qualitative superiority, and the Ukrainians are exceeding expectations by behaving far more cleverly and with more innovation and creativity and doing things that the Western powers did not expect. I will guarantee you that hardly any Western military analyst expected the Ukrainians to be able to develop their own defense industry and to do so very comprehensively, and to show promise for actually once the war is successfully concluded and Ukraine joins NATO, they would join NATO as a very powerful military member, and they would in effect become the eastern bulwark of NATO's defense, and joining with Norway and Sweden and Finland. My goodness, they would form a very formidable barrier to any future attempts at Russian expansion.
Absolutely. Ivan, are you aware of trip of Stoltenberg, head of NATO, to United States to meet the United States senators about helping Ukraine? And he already had
I didn't hear.
Yeah.
It's a good sign for Ukraine, but I don't know who else may persuade senators to vote for that help for Ukraine. Maybe Dalai Lama also have come to, or the Pope have to come to United States and speak to senators.
That reminds me of Stalin's. Yeah.
And,
Stalin once
to-
replied about the Pope was opposed to, and Stalin's reply was, "How many divisions does the Pope have?"
I'm very interesting is how the senators, particularly the Republicans, how they will address Stoltenberg, because many of them believed that Biden doesn't help Ukraine enough. Some others saying that there is no should be any help to Ukraine at all. We know that Mike Johnson consults Trump daily on every subject and so on. So of course we know that Trump, at least at this point, he is against any help to Ukraine. We can all guess what's going to happen in the future after he and if
May I,
he
re-
elected,
may I
right?
may I remind you of a historical precedent again, that President Roosevelt, when he ran for president in 1940, before he promised in the campaign, "Your boys are not going to be sent to fight in any foreign wars."
Yes,
He
that's
lied.
true.
He
And
lied. Okay.
well, he lied maybe unwillingly. However, Pearl Harbor makes it lie.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor decided it for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, so you would say that Trump, if he will be elected, he will be waiting for some kind of alternative to Pearl Harbor to
Yeah.
change his mind.
There are so many, Sasha. There are so many things that can happen between
That's true.
now and including the election, and that space in between when, let's say that Trump wins in November, and it takes office in January 2025. There are innumerable things which could happen between now and then, which could change the whole equation. And from my perception, again, I am counting on the Ukrainians successfully taking their destiny into their own hands by inflicting a decisive operational defeat. It may not necessarily be the severing of Crimea from Russia by severing that link, although that seems to be, many Western observers are increasingly observing that would in fact be a decisive link, a decisive weakness for the Russians that the Ukrainians could exploit. At this point, yeah, because thanks to the fact that most Western analysts, as you notice, they tend to copy each other's assessments with very little variation. That's because no Western analyst going out in public, they don't want to be caught out as being radically wrong or having misjudged.
Of course.
I will not mention one rather prominent Western analyst. I don't want to embarrass him or anything like that, but I remember when I was talking with him years ago, he was confidently predicting that if Russia attacked NATO, that Russia would overwhelm NATO's forces, the Baltic states, and so forth. And this was several years ago. And right now, if I were to confront him about his erroneous assessment today, he would vigorously deny that he ever made such an assessment. And I would say, Mister, yes, a young man, you need to be prepared to eat a lot of crow, because you have been egregiously wrong in your assessment of Ukraine's ability to resist up to this point. And he may be wrong yet again, because a lot of Western analysts tend to underestimate Ukraine's ability to successfully adapt, improvise, and they underestimate Ukraine's will to fight.
You could ask him before Russia will attack NATO, how about taking Avdiivka? After 6 months, they still do it.
Yeah, that's because right now the Ukrainians are inflicting a series of Verduns, if you will, the World War I type defensive, where it was the German intent to attempt to bleed the French white at the Battle of Verdun. As it turned out, they bled themselves just about as badly as they bled the French, and still did not achieve any decisive result. So I am very cautious and very skeptical of assessments when you have a wide group of Western military analysts all agreeing with each other Now, that's when you should be cautious, because they are all trying to cover themselves. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to look bad. And I would caution that, given the little incremental changes and improvements and tactical victories that the Ukrainians are winning, that by themselves look insignificant, but overall, to me, adds up to a pattern of growing qualitative superiority and the eventual ability of Ukraine to gain air superiority over crucial sectors of the front. And if they are able to do that, and thus leading to a severance of control between Russia and Crimea, that will be the decisive turning point.
Absolutely. Ivan, tell me, there were some rumors a while ago, a couple of months ago, even a couple of weeks ago maybe, that there were some upheaval in the Ukrainian government. There were rumors that Zaluzhny will be replaced, and there are some fights between Zaluzhny and Zelensky. Is it still going on, or now it's a little bit quieter in that respect?
Yesterday we had a great wave in some media that there was issued an order for fire Zaluzhny, and it's created such a high level discussion in Ukrainian social media, in Facebook, etc. But what is remarkable that this fake was supported by this fake news were supported by fake videos of Zelensky, a clone copy of his daily announcement, that in his fake announcement he said about that, and that announcement was posted in Telegram on fake page. So it was really a lot of resources were used to create this fake, and everyone understands who has time, resources, and for whom is profitable these discussions, these untrust in Ukrainian people, when everyone understands that only when we are united we have power. So probably it was another Russian IPSO, special psychological operation. So they brought this fake news to Ukrainian media via some unfortunately or foolish or just jealous Ukrainian bloggers. So they've got it and they've spread it further, and actually in the end the press secretary of Zelensky came and said that this is another fake about Zaluzhny being replaced or fired. We already have to get used to them. So all these discussions behind the fire of Zaluzhny, firing Zaluzhny, they're good only for one party, for Russians. They are not okay for Ukrainian people. So when we see any news regarding this issue, then probably some KGB agents are doing their work pretty well when you actually see this news.
I'm surprised they haven't done the fake that finally Russia is taking over Avdiivka. Finally, Russia prevails in Avdiivka. I'm surprised they're not.
Because they'd have to take it back really fast.
Well, but Ivan, technology today with ChatGPT and so on exists that it could be projected image of Zelensky or Zelensky. There was already, it's available image of half-naked Taylor Swift. So, and it looks like real. And so,
Yeah,
so
technologies allow creating such deep fakes, and unfortunately, the majority of people will consider them true because they can't they can't just detect that
so this,
this was the fake news. What is interesting, why one of the of Ukrainian opinion leaders who spread this fake. Before that, he already several times published information that Russian forces captured Avdiivka. So, and the Ukrainians are still trusting him, and this is just. I even can't find a word in English to express what I think about it, because on the third year of war, Ukrainians are still not excellent in detecting fake news and informational hygiene, and they trust all this so-called opinion leaders, and they just spend nerves discussing such issues and making our enemy feel that they're being succeeded in such psychological operations.
but for spreading this 100% fake news, especially against Ukraine, its armed forces, should not be that type of person be arrested and put to jail?
Well, we're a democratic country, and it's really hard to confirm that spreading this information made any harm to the Ukrainian armed forces. There is another case when someone gets pictures or films the locations of Ukrainian anti-air defense systems and then publish such videos on social media, making easier for Russians to detect their positions. And in this case, this person definitely will be arrested by the security service of Ukraine. There are a lot of cases when even popular bloggers were arrested because of these videos, when they publish the videos of missile strikes on Kyiv, and they can be from these videos and the locations of anti-air defense systems can be detected because you see the signs of anti-air missiles. And another case is when someone publish fake news that according to some insiders, he heard rumors that Zaluzhny will be fired today and blah blah blah. So this is a more difficult issue for security service to detect whether he is a fool or he was paid by Russian KGB agents to spread such fake news. But I hope that they will do their work well and find the truth about the source of this information.
I'm pretty sure about that. Well, listen, I'm expecting the closer we are getting to Russian election of March 27th, the more and more damage Ukrainians will start inflict or continue to inflict on Russian territory, whether it's near Moscow or St. Petersburg or some other cities or even Belgorod. But Russians have to feel, if it's a war, it's impossible that one side feels the real war. People are dying, the destruction of projects and buildings and all kinds of infrastructure is happening, and the other side is completely immune to that. There is no destruction. Nobody is being killed. Everything is great. So I don't believe that it can go on for a long time, and hopefully there will be more active actions from Ukraine. In the meantime, I would like to thank you so much for today's program, and hopefully to see you on Friday, same place, same time. Slava Ukraini!
You're on.
Bye-bye.